Hi everyone, it's Sheryl Hemkin. I am a professor of chemistry and I'm also working in the provost's office. And a couple years ago in 2018, I also did a couple HHMI test runs of an idea I had to try to promote belonging. So when you think about student persistence and or diversity in STEM fields, a common theme in the literature that keeps coming back is that of belonging and the importance of belonging. That is, if a student feels connected to their department, this tends to enhance their educational engagement with the material. They tend to identify more quickly or more solidly with the discipline. And research indicates that this is more pronounced in students that are in underrepresented groups. And so I was thinking about how to do this, how to help promote belonging, and it seemed like there might be some fairly simple, low-cost interventions that could perhaps change the feeling of belonging for students in my first year chemistry classes. So I gave it a spin. I tried it out once in Intro Chem lecture 1, the first semester of Intro Chem, and I tried it once in the Intro Chem 2, so the second semester of this. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of repeats or things like that, but I thought it was kind of interesting what came about. The intervention that I did required students to come to my office for 5 minutes to talk in the first week of classes, and to also draw a picture or representation of themselves on a piece of paper that had the caption, "I am a scientist," listed at the bottom. And they were also supposed to fill in their name above that. To me, the main intervention was the 5-minute visit in my office before any work was submitted. So the first week of classes, we don't submit any work. People really don't have an opportunity, hopefully, to classify themselves as a particular type of student, to classify me as a particular type of professor, to classify the class as something that was going to be super easy or super tough. So hopefully that was a point where we could both still be kind of blank slates for each other, and our conversation could be more open and focus on the people that we are rather than the roles we'd be taking. Well, how are you a student? How are you as a student? How am I as a teacher? Stuff like that. So with this personal introduction, I was also hoping students would feel more comfortable in coming to office hours or asking questions in class, simply because we had gotten to know each other at least a little bit as humans rather than as teacher-student. I was also hoping that would try to lower the need to feel like you were scoring points or earning demerits by asking or not asking certain types of questions. And with that, at the end of the conversation, I also stressed the importance of asking questions, whether it's in class or whether it's after class in office hours, that it's really important. Everybody needs help to flourish and grow. And so I also reiterated that it wasn't my concern where they were starting in the class. It was really my concern to see how they progressed and how they grew as a person that's now learning chemistry. As a side note, I guess all this kind of came out because I think back to my own days as a student, and I did not go to office hours at all. I did not avail myself of all those opportunities because I never felt like I had a smart question. And I thought asking a dumb question would only make me look dumb. So there was no real upside to asking a question. There was only downsides. So I'm hoping I'm trying to dispel a little bit of that. And so I feel that maybe if I would have had a pre-established relationship that was not based on my knowledge of the subject, if I would have known the professor a little bit ahead of time, I would have been more likely to seek help. I don't know. Maybe I would have been recalcitrant to this type of intervention also, but I would hope not. So that was one activity that I did, and I think that was the main thing that I felt was important. The other activity that was done was to have the students draw a representation of themselves on a piece of paper with their name and the caption, "I'm a scientist," at the bottom. They did this during the first day of class when I was talking about the syllabus, and then I displayed these drawings during the pre-class time that was coupled with a basic outline of topics from the class. I liked coupling the pictures with the outlines so that students were sure to take notice. In addition, I did groups of 3-ish. I had a little bit larger class to ensure the students would see them at least a couple times as a representation of a scientist. And I guess I should probably say, with respect to the drawings, again, they were done on the first day of class, and the students did them with a box of crayons that I handed out. So, well, a few boxes of crayons. And the crayons were from a box of 24. So the colors were generally not very human. And I think that helped prompt students to be a little bit more creative and free in their representations. And I also wanted that in order to help them free themselves from their own perceived box. So, and with that, a few students also added accessories to their drawing so that they could be both a scientist and an athlete, or a scientist and a musician, or a scientist that had a cat, something like that. So those were my two interventions, the 5-minute conversation and then the drawing that was repeatedly shown in the classroom. I would love to say that I had great quantitative outcomes that would show it was helpful or not. Unfortunately, it was hard to quantitate through survey. I knew that going in, but alas, I tried. Based on the pre and post-class surveys, there's some evidence that there was an improvement in attitude and confidence and the idea of belonging in terms of science or chemistry. However, since I didn't do control surveys with students in a class that didn't have the interventions, I don't know if the pre and post changes are the regular trajectory in a normal class. So that is, of course, unfortunate. It would also have been good to do this whole thing with scales that are more likely to track with belonging rather than my homegrown set of questions. Nonetheless, it gave me a feeling like things progressed in a positive way through the class. That said, I think the qualitative evidence that the interventions had effect were there. I don't have controls on this. There was, in my opinion, an increase in office hour visits based on just my remembrance of typical classes. And I would absolutely stake my life on the fact that there were more unique students coming to the office hours than what I would typically see in a typical class in the past. Again, it would obviously have been good to have a log of office hour visits in classes without interventions, but if memory is all useful, the change was relatively significant. And I did check off the number of students that I saw throughout the semester. And I tended to see in those classes with interventions, 40 to 60% of the class, at least one time. And to me, that was much different. The other thing that I thought was useful is that the first 5-minute meetings also gave me a better perspective on the interests and anxieties of the students. And so I feel that maybe better helped me prepare or work in the classroom environment with them. So I thought that was really good, or a real benefit. The one thing that I would say, if I had a smaller class size, I would have preferred a 10-minute time block. That just wasn't manageable with this class size, but I think a 10-minute time block would have allowed more organic follow through on some of the questions, but it would still have prevented us from getting into the weeds on, how they like chemistry, how well they expect to do, because some of the conversations, the students tried to push it in that direction, and I tried to keep it away. So that would have been one thing that I would have liked to have changed also. Well, nonetheless, I will continue to do this practice in future classes since the time was minimal in comparison to the apparent impact that it had. I just liked seeing a greater section of the class coming to my office hours and asking questions. So to me, the apparent or the impact that I believe I saw exceeded the cost. So if you've got any questions about this, please feel free to ask anytime, any place. All the best. Take care. Bye-bye.